So I'm a first-time delegate to this year's Synod for the Christian Reformed Church, which is pretty overwhelming because we haven't met for 3 years and the agenda is massive, and there are some pretty controversial and weighty topics on this year's agenda. So in order to make sure I'm ready and prepared for the gathering, I'm looking for advice from people who have more experience than I do. And since I know there are many other first-time delegates who are feeling the same way I am, I'm recording these conversations so you can prepare for Synod with me.
And, we talked earlier about how it's a real privilege to serve at Synod, and it is. And one of the things that I would come away from Synod encouraged by is reports you hear from world missions called Resonate Now and Reframe and so forth. At Synod, you get to hear some things that you may not actually reach you in the pew in your own church. And, they talk about how God is, working through the gospel, how God is moving people, drawing people to faith, how God is providing and so forth. And that's really important, I think, to hear too. It's very easy to think, things are not the way they should be, and then just sort of, close your mind to any possibility of God doing anything good with the CRC. But, as someone has said, God can shoot straight even with a crooked stick, which is good, because I'm a crooked stick too. And so that's actually a very, I find, encouraging thing. And some of the advisory committees, you get to hear extended reports from the agency directors and so forth. And so don't know what committees you all will be on, but some are actually very very edifying. You walk away going, wow, this is great. Praise God for what He's doing through the Christian Reformed Church. Yeah.
That's a good word, because I think some probably are coming into this Synod ready to just fight like a pit bull,
Well, yeah.
And you can be so ready to just kind of brawl it out that you almost miss the being able to see how God's still using us and working for His glory.
Absolutely.
And so it's a good word to come in and just kind of calm down, breathe a little bit, be ready to stand firm when you need to stand firm, but also be ready to hear that God is still using our denomination for really powerful ways and building His kingdom through us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You bet.
That's one of the questions I've been thinking about is we all know that I think everyone feels the weight of this upcoming Synod. Even that's why we're having all of these prayer gatherings leading up to it. Everyone's feeling kind of the weight of it, and people know that it will be, at some points, it will probably feel very much like a battle. Do you have any thoughts on how delegates can kind of walk away from Synod feeling blessed and not just kind of beat down, wore out? I've talked to delegates from the past who said, man, it took me a month to recover after that Synod because it was so heavy. But do you have any advice on how we can leave this gathering feeling blessed?
Well, I think I was one of those that had to take a month to recover a few times. Because, not everything goes the way you think it should. I don't know if you should be talking to me, about going to Synod, because I've been at Synods where things I was, felt very strongly about and convicted about, spoke to the issues and voted, my convictions. I ended up being, the tail that the dog was wagging instead of the nose that the rest of the dog was following. And it can be very disappointing. It can be frustrating, and you might wonder, is this a matter of Ichabod? Has the glory departed? And so forth. But you do have to remember that God is sovereign. You and I are here for such a time as this, just like it was said to Esther many years ago. And if we believe that our convictions, our biblical convictions, are being trampled on, obviously you're not going to feel good about that, nor should you feel good about that. So then you do have to ask yourself, okay, is this a matter of an appeal to the next year's synod or not? And I do think many people over the years too have got to a point where they've said, we've done what we could. We just can't see ourselves. We're not going to say anathema to our denomination, but we just can't continue to walk with them. That's a huge decision, and I don't think anyone makes that lightly.
No.
But you just have to remember, I think, that God is sovereign, and maybe you'll remember that story of, a missionary preaching the gospel and, or a radio broadcast in another language, and how people are, coming to faith in Christ, and you got to kind of hang on to that too. Mm-hmm. And remember that there's more than one issue. Of course, central is the gospel. Central is whether or not we will maintain the marks of the church going forward. Yeah. But, I'll just say, too, if you're discouraged by what happens at Synod, you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where you need to find someone that maybe you talk to at a coffee break at Synod, and you both were kind of down in the mouth even for a while about it, and just talk to them and sort of talk each other through it afterwards. I think most people would be happy to do that. Yeah. And yeah,
it seems like for sure one of the big blessings that can come out of Synod is that just relational networking that you had talked about, where you can go into it feeling kind of like Elijah syndrome, and that's been one of the benefits of the Abide Project, and even just the Messy Reformation. People have said, "Oh, there's other pastors who think the same thing that I think." That's awesome. Yeah. And then you can get to Synod and you can find even more. Right. And even if you get, even if the denomination starts to head in a direction that you don't want, all right, I have other brothers with me, and I'm not alone in this, and we can sit and talk and kind of support each other through this. And so, we can build those relationships at Synod and leave with that blessing there too.
Right. And I have found too that at Synod, you don't always go through the lunch line or whatever by your sort of comrades. Mm-hmm. You might find yourself visiting with someone that maybe is like a polar opposite on some of the issues, and you kind of know that, and it'd be, okay, God, are you testing my faith or not? But actually that's a great opportunity, number one, to be friendly to someone that you've disagreed with, and you disagree with, and maybe you'd have a chance to say, I just don't quite get it. Why you really feel that this is the way to go? Could you just simply explain it to me? And I do think that you're not going to agree with this person, but if you actually hear from them why they feel, believe, or convince so differently, then you have a greater understanding, not only of that person, but of sort of the issues and the dynamics that we're dealing with. So I would say you're going to want to find sort of like-minded people, to chum around with and to encourage each other. But, don't be afraid to, have some of these other conversations too.
It's a good word, because on the floor, everything's so formal, speaking for or against motions and stuff, and it's hard to really sometimes get to the heart of why people are making these motions. And so sitting with someone you disagree with over lunch and just saying why, and then taking James' advice to keep your mouth shut and just listen, and don't get in a debate with them, but just listen and hear why they believe what they believe is good.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I do think that if we actually show, Christian respect toward each other, where we disagree as well toward each other, now they're all going to vote together on the issue when it comes down to the vote, but that's a bridge building thing, which we do need too. Yeah. I want to understand people, especially the ones I disagree with. Mm-hmm. I do. I want to understand what, sometimes you go, what were they thinking? But what were they thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. That was one of the things I really became convinced of in my undergraduate program, because I went to, so my undergraduate program was in a Baptist dispensational, like pretty much everything opposite of what I believe. And so I had all of these professors that would say like, well, Reformed people believe, and I would go, no, we don't. And so eventually we had these conversations, and I remember getting so frustrated when people were misrepresenting me that I tried to make a commitment to the best of my ability.
Right.
I will not try to misrepresent. I will intentionally try to honestly represent these people's opinions and then interact with them on that level, rather than creating this straw man that makes you seem smart, but no, we're going to actually interact on that level. And in order to do that, you have to sit down with people and say, why do you believe this?
Right. And if you can do it when you're not in 5 minutes going to have to vote.
Yeah.
That's better too.
Yeah, when you have to vote, the pressure's on.
My most productive conversations have been informal over the years, not when I was going to vote on something. Mm-hmm. Because it's not all political, but if you have to vote and you need a majority or whatever, it becomes it feels political, even if it's not. And so to have a discussion when you're not going to vote, like I said, in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That could be
at the vote time, people are digging into their trenches.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, everybody's deciding which trench am I going to be in, and it really is hard to move people in and out of those trenches in that moment. But if you can have more of a laid back conversation outside of that, then you can have it can be productive.
Absolutely. And that's good. We need to understand real people and not just think about caricatures.
Yeah.